and welcome to Inside View. My name is Cory Burnell, and I'll be your host for this episode. And we have a very cool episode this time. We're visited by the celebrated guide dogs of Calaveras County and three of its representatives. We have Angie Ruiz joining us, Rowan and Alonnah Klotz. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. So thank you, ladies, for joining us. And the reason I'm sharing with our viewers that this is an exciting episode is we never have four-legged guests. So we have three four-legged guests here. These are guide dog puppies. And we're going to talk a little bit about what goes into creating guide dogs and what you ladies are doing over there at Celebrated Guide Dogs of Calaveras County. So for our viewers who don't know what the work a guide dog does, what that work is, Angie, you want to start us off? Tell us a little bit about it.
Sure, I'd love to. Thanks for inviting us. This is really exciting for us too. So a guide dog is a service animal. It's specifically for people who are visually impaired or blind, and it's their mobility tool. And you've probably seen people walking with white canes. Well, this is a different option from the white cane. The dogs get them from point A to point B without hitting anything in the middle, with stopping at curbs and things like that. So it's just a different option as a mobility tool for someone who's visually impaired.
Very cool. Now, is a blind guide dog different than other type of service animals, or are there other types of service animals?
So, good question. Hopefully the guide dog itself isn't blind.
Okay.
The guide dogs,
that's a good point.
It's probably the hardest job for a dog to do, because they have to ignore all of their natural drives to keep their person safe. And they have to do what we call intelligent disobedience, which is if a command given by their handler is unsafe, they have to refuse that command.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah, so they are a specific type of service animals. So you may have seen other service animals like dogs for diabetics, or maybe a PTSD dog, or a dog for the deaf. Those are all kind of under the umbrella of service dogs.
Okay. And what you ladies are doing at Celebrated Guide Dogs of Calaveras County, which I love the name, of course, it's right next door to Celebrated Jumping Frogs, right?
It's in the same wheelhouse. Yeah.
What you're doing there is specifically Guide Dogs for the Blind. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
All of our puppies come from Guide Dogs for the Blind in San Rafael, where they breed them, and then we get them at 8 weeks old, and we have them for about a year.
Okay.
And then we give them back.
Well, that leads me to one of the questions I wanted to know about. You said that the puppies come from a specific breeder, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are there breeds of dogs that are essentially gifted in this way that we specifically would use as guide dogs for the blind? Can you speak to that?
Yep. Guide Dogs for the Blind breeds all their own dogs because they're looking specifically for health, temperament, and size. So it's not really convenient to get on a plane with a 90-pound, giant Great Dane. So, or a 100-pound Great Dane. It takes a little bit of your leg room off. So specifically, they use labs, which all three of these guys are. They use golden retrievers, and then they use crosses of the two. So you could have a cute little cross as well.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I imagine that the owner of the guide dog is going to probably get to choose the type of dog that they want to an extent?
To an extent,
okay.
Yeah. When someone comes in, they go through a long application process, and they can specifically, like, let's say someone really likes golden retrievers, they can say, I would really like a golden retriever. They might be put on a wait list for that golden retriever, and they might not get a dog as fast as maybe someone who wanted just whatever dog fits me the best. So we try to, the instructors try to encourage clients to be open, but,
Yeah.
you might want a really nice golden retriever. Who doesn't? They're cute.
So Angie, how long have you worked with guide dogs?
I actually was an instructor at the school.
Okay.
I've been a guide dog mobility instructor oh geez, going on 15 years now. So I retired from that, but I didn't want to leave Guide Dogs because it's such an amazing organization. So I came and became a puppy raiser, which is volunteer. So
Okay.
I've been doing it for a long time.
Cool, yeah,
Yeah.
15 years. Now, in Rowan, how about you? How long have you been working
I've
in
been
this way?
doing it for 2 years.
2 years? And so what are the things you like or dislike about it, and what's your role? What are you doing? Are you training dogs?
Yes, I'm training them. We teach them the socialization part since they are 8 weeks old.
Oh, interesting.
And they go to school with me, and I love that part. And the only part I dislike is giving them up in the end.
Oh, yeah, I imagine that'd be sad. But the socialization now, is that socialization with human beings, other dogs, the whole gamut?
The whole...
You don't want them getting out there and fighting.
No.
Right, okay. Yeah, I can. And then Alonnah, is it a similar role for you?
Yeah, it's exactly the same pretty much.
How long have you been working with guide dogs?
A little less than 2 years. I don't
Yeah.
know exactly how much.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, this is exactly what my daughter would love to do. If it was up to her, she'd have a dozen dogs. So this is right up our alley to have this conversation. Now, what about testing and qualifications for, I mean, if the dogs get trained and then, I mean, you attach them to a leash and you send them out to where the human being and you hope they don't walk them in front of a bus. So how do we know that they're not going to walk them in front of a bus? What goes on there?
Luckily, it's not our job to do the formal training, which is what you're talking about.
Okay.
There's a 3-year apprenticeship to become a guide dog mobility instructor. So those are really qualified people who spend a lot of time working with those dogs. Our job is, as Rowan said, is to socialize the dogs, get them everywhere, just really enjoy getting out and learning their jobs, which is to be well behaved in public and that kind of thing. Then they do get evaluations 3 or 4 times a year from someone from Guide Dogs who comes, and they make sure the puppies are on track. And as a leader, I'm in touch with him all the time. We call him a community field rep. All the time to make sure that our club is doing what we need to do, kind of organizing, making sure we have the right number of dogs, making sure dogs are doing well. So that's kind of how that works.
Okay. At what point do the dogs leave your organization and go off to Guide Dogs to do their 3-year apprenticeship?
Do you wanna
How
answer
old
that?
are they then?
Well, the people are the apprentices, the trainers are the apprentices.
Okay.
The guide dogs, do you want to talk about that, Alonnah?
Well, after they do their what they call just puppy raising, they go into guide dogs and they're evaluated, and then they go in for formal training, which lasts, isn't it 8 weeks?
12 weeks.
12 weeks. 12 weeks.
Okay, so 3 months worth.
Yep. And we have them for about a year. So they're about 14 months old when they're ready to go in.
Interesting. Now, when they go to Guide Dogs and they do that training there, that's 3 months worth of training. At what point are they out walking a human being around? How old are they then?
Do you mean with their actual client?
Yeah, with their client.
It takes 12 weeks, and then they're matched with someone right away after they're done formal training. And then the person and the dog are trained for 2 weeks together. There's a live-in residence hall that's pretty schwanky, actually. They have a hot tub and the food is amazing. The clients come for 2 weeks and they learn how to use their dog. They meet their new dog and everything. It's pretty amazing.
That's neat. So is this all administered by the private sector as far as certifying a dog and deciding that, hey, this is great, this dog's qualified to go ahead and lead someone around? Is that all private sector administration, or is there government regulation and licensing involved?
That's a great question. California used to have a guide dog board, but last year it was deemed not necessary anymore. Now most guide dog schools, there are maybe 10 or 12 in the country, are certified by the International Guide Dog Federation.
Okay.
So they're put through some pretty stringent tests and evaluations every couple of years to make sure they follow these rules. Guide Dogs is a nonprofit, and they receive no government funding whatsoever, so it's all private donations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then, and volunteer work, right? I mean, so.
And volunteers, right?
Yeah, so if some of our viewers, I mean, is your organization looking for additional volunteers? I would
Yes.
think all the time. So if some of our viewers say, I
Yes.
would love to work with those cute, intelligent puppies.
Yes.
They would want to contact Celebrated Guide Dogs.
Of course, you can call us or Guide Dogs for the Blind. We are in desperate need of puppy raisers. There are some puppies right now who are looking for homes because only about half of the guide dogs that are born make it as guides because it's so difficult. They need to, and about 300 guides are graduated every year, which is a pretty amazing amount. That means, 800 dogs or so are born every year, and each one of those puppies needs a home for the first year of its life.
Okay, and so that's a role for a volunteer to take a puppy, and then you essentially do the socialization aspect of it all the way till they eventually go off to their 3-month training.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. So, hey, that's a neat gig. I mean, you get to enjoy a puppy for a year without having to have a dog for 15 years.
That is true.
Right.
If you know you only have a year, although it's hard to let go of them, but
Of
when you
course.
come into it, you know that they're not yours. So, and the coolest part of this is you get to meet the people who are matched with your dog. There's a graduation ceremony, which is pretty amazing. We've all been to them. There's lots of tissues involved and lots of crying, but it's really a celebration of, the work you did for your puppy with that person who is now this. It's fun to watch. I mean, it's fun to watch a dog go from a little ball of fur who's unruly and ridiculous to this very mature, I'm very responsible, I'm going to...
Parent.
Yeah, it's really pretty cool.
No, that is neat. Well, so I gotta ask, out of curiosity, are there ever any like horror stories where, something bad happened with a guide dog that didn't see a particular risk? Have you heard any stories like that? Which of course, the world's full of risks.
Right.
But,
So that's where intelligent disobedient, I have a story like that, and I'll kind of, as an instructor, I have the story. Puppies, luckily, they're all, I haven't heard any bad ones with puppies. Our
Well, of
puppies
course,
are
they're
pretty
not
great.
leading anybody
Yeah,
around
they're
the
not
street,
that
right?
responsible, right?
Yeah.
So, there was a client who, every day he went to the elevator to bring him down from his job, right? And he had a guide dog, and the guide dog wouldn't go into the elevator this one day. He kept stopping, and he was like, no, go forward, forward, forward. And the guy got pretty upset about it. And the dog was like, I'm not going. And it turns out the elevator wasn't there. Just the doors opened and there was no elevator. So luckily the dog was like, no, I'm not doing that, buddy. So it's kind of a crazy thing to think that this dog who's been trained to do things like this can say, nope, this isn't safe. I'm not going to do that for you.
Yeah, that's incredible. It hadn't crossed my mind about the intelligent disobedience. Here they're being told to do something, and they are the parent in the relationship that this is not safe to do.
Well, I think they're more a partner.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, they're more a
that's better
partner than
way
a
to put
parent,
it.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so we've got 3 here we haven't introduced. I know we've got, refresh my memory, Mumford and Taylor and
Biscotti.
Biscotti, yes, of course, Biscotti because of coffee. So, and they're all puppies, and Mumford's going on a year, right?
He is, yeah, he's 8 months.
Oh, only 8 months. So
Right.
he's okay.
He looks mature.
Yeah, he
but
definitely
he's not,
does.
yeah.
And then he'll be off to guide school, where he'll spend the 3 months, and then he's actually going to be out there with a person. So,
Yeah, we hope, we cross our fingers.
yeah, that is pretty cool. So what's the expense for someone if they needed a guide dog, or I imagine perhaps their insurance is probably paying for it, or is this all donation, private sector based?
So Guide
charity?
Dogs for the Blind does not charge
God.
for any guide dogs. In fact, they pay for vet care for the life of the guide dog as long as it's in the program. So we don't pay vet care, which is really great because vet care can be really expensive, especially for a puppy. And then when they go on with their client, vet care is covered. Follow-up services are covered for the life of the team. So an instructor will come out to wherever they are in Canada, the United States, and make sure they're doing okay. And also, if they ever have an emergency that they need someone to come out and, oh, my dog is doing this weird thing, they'll send an instructor out on an emergency basis as well. So, and also if a client keeps their dog after they retire, that vet care is also covered. And it's at absolutely no cost. The flights, the staying at Guide Dogs for 2 weeks, all of that is totally at no cost for the client.
Wow, and so is that covered because Guide Dogs has donations that cover all this expense?
Right, it's all private donation. That's the no government funding at all, so it's all private.
Wow. Now, I don't know if on some of our wide shots here, if viewers have seen that you ladies are feeding the dogs on occasion, and I wondered about that before we went on air here, why the frequency, and so I'll let you ladies tell the audience why you're doing that.
In Guide Dogs, in the training, they call it positive reinforcement. So
Okay.
instead of, punishing your dog when they're misbehaving, you encourage the good behavior with food. Sometimes it's, I don't know what I'm trying to explain. Sometimes it's secondary reinforcement,
Okay.
where it's, you tell them they're good or you pet them, but mainly the treats are, you're doing good, keep doing what you're doing.
Very good. So they understand here I'm supposed to sit and be quiet and behave, and if I continue doing that, I'll continue to get a treat every once in a while.
That's right, yeah, that's their, if anyone who has had labs knows that food is their paycheck, for sure. So these guys will work for food, for sure.
Yeah, I know labs, we have one, they're also good at naps too.
Yeah, you can see, this is the nice thing about Guide Dogs. This is a 4-month-old puppy who's so well behaved. So it's pretty crazy to think that I remember my first lab, who was nuts for the first two years of her life. She would bounce off the walls, quite literally.
Yeah.
So not a Guide Dog puppy. So it's pretty amazing when you think about it that these puppies are so young and already understand, oh, this is what I do. I just chill.
Well, and that's what we talked a little bit about earlier in the show, about where the puppies come from and the breeding behind them is obviously it's showing that there's a significant result there. So then in Calaveras County, does Celebrated Guide Dogs of Calaveras County have an office location, or are you pretty well just all homes, volunteer homes?
We're all volunteer homes. We all have our, they have 1 or 2 puppies sometimes at a time. We all have our own dogs. We all have our own other pets, kids. They're all very diverse homes, but we're all volunteers who live in Calaveras. We have 8 puppies right now.
Oh, okay.
And these are only 3 of the bunch.
Yeah. And then I guess when you bring the puppy into a home, there's is there significantly different treatment with that puppy in the home as compared to other pets, or do you ladies there is? Okay.
Do you want to
I'm wondering
answer
if
that,
you
Rowan?
trained them all the same way.
I wish my dogs were as well behaved as these guys. Rowan, you want to talk about what they have?
Yeah, what do you do different with the Taylor here than other pets?
Well, when they are little, we want to start having them learn what the rules are and how to act in a house with our pets and other people in our house. We start training them from a very young age, so they learn very quickly. And do you want to add anything?
Yeah, there was
to that?
something about 8 weeks, right?
We get them in 8 weeks. So do you want to talk about what kind of training we do? And
Well, when you first get the puppy, it's definitely a change, because there's a tiny little puppy in your house that's not it doesn't know the training yet.
Housebroken.
Yeah, and so we would go every Sunday to her house to work with the other dogs and start developing those behaviors that they need to know, and it just grows from there, and having other pets in the house can kind of start to slow that down.
Yeah.
So our job is to give them nice house manners. They can't get on the furniture, they can't eat people food, they can't scavenge, they have to walk nicely on a leash, they have to be able to go out in public with other dogs and distractions and cats and whatever that is distracting to them, and they have to ignore them, basically, which is really hard for a young puppy to do. So that's why reinforcement is super important, because that they want the food more than they want to say hi to that dog over there or whatever. So those are the things we teach them that they can't teach them as when they're in formal training.
Yeah. What then do you see from pet owners when they're training their animals, or lack of training? What are some common mistakes pet owners make where you would say, oh, this is really cool now that I know how to train a dog this way? A lot of people just don't get it, or they're not treating their animals correctly when they're training. Can you speak to some of the mistakes people make as pet owners?
Well, I think there's a saying that says the only thing two dog trainers agree upon is that the third person is doing it wrong.
Okay.
So we tend to like to focus on the positive reinforcement. It's very effective for dogs, just like us, right? I enjoyed my job, but getting that paycheck every 2 weeks is why I went there.
Sure.
Right? So for them, the food is their paycheck. So we like to focus on that. I know that there are other theories out there that that's not how you should train them, but I think we like to stick with, let's ignore or prevent bad behavior and then really reinforce good behavior. So that's kind of where we come from.
Yeah, makes sense. These three are testament to, hey, it's working.
Right.
At what age does a guide dog retire? You mentioned retiring, and then maybe the owner keeps the dog, or the client keeps
Right.
the dog?
They retire anywhere between the average is 9 to 10 years old for a working dog, and sometimes they'll keep the dog or place it with a family member or friend. But some of the really cool times are when their puppy raiser gets the puppy back.
Really?
Well, I guess they're a dog by then, but when we get the dog back after that retirement, we're offered the dog back if let's say the client can't keep it because they already have too many dogs, or they can only have one guide. They want to make sure that they give their new guide, all the attention. We can get them back, which is really fun to start and end, and that full circle feeling is pretty cool.
Sure. What was that movie recently? A Dog's Purpose, I think it was.
Well,
Where the dog comes back to life. Come on, you ladies have to have seen it.
I
right?
haven't seen it, I admit that. But a good movie, I have to say, Taylor is actually a little bit famous.
Oh.
Because there's a movie about his mom. It's called Pick of the Litter. It just came out. It follows a litter of guide dogs from the moment they're born all the way until the end of their story. So I guess there's some spoilers that one of them becomes a breeder. But so Taylor's mom is one of those puppies. So it's kind of a cool, if you haven't seen it, go out there and see it. It's on Comcast On Demand, I think, and in various cities around. So it's worth make sure you have tissues handy.
And that would be really cool.
It really gives a nice feel. It really shows our life because it follows them through puppy raising and then through training, which is fun.
Yeah. Now, so you said you were an instructor, which I guess is the trainer after the puppy period,
Yeah,
right?
I would get them after
you girls have socialized them, got them ready.
Right.
Okay.
After they made them perfect, I would get them.
That's right. And then you'd have them for about that 3-month period.
Yes.
And then they're off to a client. So how many dogs have you done this with? I mean, this has to be...
Puppy raised or trained?
Well, let's talk both. Yeah, I can.
I actually have no idea how many dogs I've trained as a guide dog. A lot.
Yeah.
And clients. I mean, we did both. That was really fun. But he is number 8 puppy raised. Okay. So, yeah. And I think this is way more fun because, I get to just play with puppies all day.
You don't have to be the
I don't have a
guy.
boss telling me that I'm not, it's all just puppies and positive reinforcement. So there's a lot less pressure.
Well, it seems like everything, since it's essentially private sector based, there aren't really laws that people have to worry about as far as the regulation of guide dogs. Is that the case?
Well, there is the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities
Oh,
Act, right?
okay.
That does cover service animals, and they are service animals under that law. They have the right to public access everywhere. Guide dog puppies have similar, it's varies state by state, but California guide dog puppies have the same rights as guide dog users. They can go. We don't tend to push it when people give us a hassle, but it's very rare around here that we ever get a hassle about.
Sure.
Most people are really excited to see us come in the door with
Yeah.
them. So, and they often have a fan club, right? Yeah.
Yeah, what are some of the most unusual places that a guide dog might take someone? I mean, there's onto an airplane, for example, public transit, something like that could be difficult or harrowing. Are there unusual places you think, boy, I wouldn't have thought I'd see a guide dog take someone there?
You want to, I mean, we've taken dogs, our puppies go pretty much everywhere we go, so we've done some really fun outings. Do you want to talk about those outings?
Every month we have an outing as a group, and we choose to go to a place and with our puppies. And I think one of our favorites is San Francisco to go.
Okay.
And so we ride the public transit, so the dogs get that experience too. And we walk throughout the city, and they can be near the loud streets and people and other dogs. And I think that's just a good experience for everyone.
Do you see a maturation as they become more and more familiar with a hectic scene like that, going to the city when they're for the first time compared to, say, the 5th or 10th time?
I think they get used to it and they remember, and with the positive reinforcement, they know that they're doing what they're supposed to do.
Well, I know they know how to be on TV now. They certainly
Right?
have
They're
conquered
old
that
pros,
challenge.
right? Mumford thinks he's over it. He's like, I'm going to take a nap.
Yeah, that's great. Well, so is this the first puppy you've had, Rowan?
No, this is my fourth.
Fourth, so
Yes.
you're probably going to do a fifth then?
Yes.
And how about Alonnah?
This is my second dog.
Second?
Yeah,
Is there going to be a third, do you know?
I believe so.
I'm not putting you on the spot.
I hope so. You better say yes.
Well, ladies, we're down to just our last minute, so I'm going to take a moment to let our viewers know how to contact your organization if they wanted to be a puppy raiser, right? So we've got an 800 number on the screen there, 295-4050. Again, that's 800-295-4050. And who answers that line if somebody calls?
That is actually Guide Dogs for the Blind.
Okay.
So they can get you in touch with the leader in the area that you happen to be. If it's me, then they'll give you my information, or wherever you might be. We didn't want to keep it just to here in case you're in a different county and you happen to see this.
Well, yeah, in fact, if you have email and social media lists, look for this episode on YouTube. I think Sarah gets that put up, and then you can send this out to all of your lists. if
We
you'd like to.
definitely will.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
You bet. So thank you to our viewers for joining us once again on Inside View, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, I'm Cory Burnell, and we'll see you next time. Bye.